In the early days of COVID, I don't know if you guys can remember that season of just immense boredom where you're just climbing the walls waiting for when the country is going to take back off again. Ashley, my wife, and I had been wanting for several years at this moment to buy an RV. We had saved up a little bit for it. It was kind of a practical decision. We had flooded twice and having to move and live with the in-laws twice. We're like, we're not going to do that a third time. And so if it floods again, we're just going to live in the trailer. So we needed it for practical reasons, or wanted it for practical reasons. But then just all the idea of freedom came up, like the ability to be able to travel. And so during the worst boredom in the world, where kids can't go out, can't do anything, we started looking for an RV. And we'd saved up almost enough, but not quite enough for the type of RV trailer that we wanted. And so we're going from place to place. We're just looking at the options. We're seeing what people have for sale. And we ended up at this house, and the guy had a sticker price that was a little higher than what we had, but the trailer, the RV, was exactly what we were looking for. Like if we had drawn a trailer in crayon, it was there. You know, the guy had it. And he has not done anything with it. He hasn't traveled with it. It's just set in his driveway because he used it for the same reason we wanted to use it for. And as we're talking, every 10 minutes, the price got cheaper, and then it got cheaper. And we're not negotiating. I'm not even planning to buy it that day, but it got to the point where we're like, we've got to jump on this. Let's do it. And so we bought an RV. And so we were so thankful to have the price, to have the exact trailer we wanted. We were so thankful to get that, but we weren't really prepared for it. I don't know if you know this, but there's a secret to being a man. If you've pulled any kind of trailer and you look at the RV and you think, oh, this is the exact same thing, you fake it hoping nobody notices that it's not the same thing. Like they ride very differently. I've pulled like low boys. I've pulled like a 5-foot trailer with a couch on it. This is a whole house on the bumper. And so we handed the guy some money. We signed some paperwork, and I hook up, and he's like, do you need any tips? Do you need anything? I said, no, I got this, I got this. And so we pull out, and I wasn't to really the first stop sign before I realized this SUV is not geared for this amount of weight on the back. I mean, the trailer is bouncing all over the place, and I'm going 20 miles an hour. I'm up to highway speeds, and I am white knuckling that steering wheel thinking, dear Lord, are we going to make it? Ash is like, hey, are you okay? He's like, yeah, we got this, baby. Oh, yeah, we got a trailer. Yeah. And my heart is just racing. Get it home. Everything's safe. Another thing that I misunderstood about trailers is, in my mind, if it fits in it, it's ready to ride. And so you just throw everything you've got in the trailer. Put a horse in there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter even where it's at. And I learned two important things about RV traveling in that first trip. There's a weight capacity written on the side of it for a reason. They mean it. Don't try to exceed that weight capacity. And not only does it have a limit with how much it can carry safely, but it also needs to be placed properly inside the trailer. There was one trip we took where I just thought I need to keep everything easily accessible. So I put the items just kind of wherever they were to make sense for that drive. And I thought we were going to die. I mean, it's swaying next to walls as we're going, and I'm thinking that shouldn't be. And then someone says, you gotta position it this way. What I learned is that I was extremely thankful for this object, but this object was also causing me fear and anxiety because I didn't pay attention to how much it could carry, and I didn't pay attention to where I placed the items in the trailer. You can get where you want to go, but you should not ignore your capacity or your own weight limits, your proportions, where they are going to be. We're in this series called A Psalm for Every Sigh, and what we're wanting to do is just look at all the different emotions we experience as people. You experience a ton of emotions, and you're entering into Thanksgiving season, which is a season where you have the emotions that you're really feeling, and then you have the emotions that you're supposed to feel during this moment. Does anybody feel that tension between the emotions? I'm supposed to be thankful right now, but man, I maybe I should fake it. I don't know. Tim Keller says this about Psalms. He says, whenever you are in a time of stress, you should go to the Psalms. They have a medicine for everything. They depict every situation that a human being can be in, and they've addressed every emotion you could ever have. They also tell you how to process that emotion or about that situation before God. What we see in all of the Psalms is a way to look at any situation you emotionally find yourself in and convert that into worship. And it doesn't matter if you're faking Thanksgiving right now or not. Even faking Thanksgiving has a psalm for that. Today, what we want to do is that we want to work on being thankful and increasing in thankfulness by looking at how much you and I are carrying right now. Are we carrying too much? And the things that we're carrying, even if it's the things that we're supposed to be carrying, are they prioritized and placed in your heart in the way that they're supposed to be placed? Because if you get either of those two things wrong, you're going to be white-knuckling Thanksgiving. You're going to be white-knuckling your way through the next few weeks, even into Christmas. So if you haven't already, turn to Psalm 30. And we're going to start working through this psalm of David, trying to figure out, like, how can I be thankful when moments where I'm feeling a lot of things, but thankfulness isn't one of them. At the very top of the psalm, while you turn and find it if you haven't already, at the very top of the psalm, it says that it's a dedication to the temple. And this whole sermon was going to be like around this idea of the temple. So that's just worth you looking at, maybe for your own Bible study. But just to set this up, King David decided at one point in his life, I want to build a temple for our God. And God told him, no, I don't want you to do that. You can maybe let your son do that, but you don't get to do that. And so David writes this psalm for an event that he's never going to be at, so that it is read and sang and proclaimed during the moment when Solomon, his son, dedicates that temple. It's a unique way of being thankful for an event that you've been barred from being a part of, but you get to help participate in. So that's a Bible study for another time. But we'll start in Psalm 30, verse 1. And I just want to begin with this, is that true thankfulness, it actually comes from a place of both victory and healing. I want to tease that out, that there's things that we need to be victorious over, but there's also things inside of us that we need to be healed from. Let's see where this goes. Verse 1 says, I will extol you. That word extol means to lift up, to exalt, to worship. I will lift you up. I will extol you, O Lord. For you have drawn me up and have not let my foes rejoice over me. God, David says, God, I'm going to lift you up. You know why I'm going to lift you up, God? Because I know that you pull me up. I'm going to lift you up because you drew me up. Some of us in here have, testimonies, have stories of you have distinct moments in your life that you were like face down in the alley, figuratively, maybe literally, and the Lord lifted you up. You've been rescued out of something. This psalm begins with just, I remember who you are and what you've done for me. And so I'm going to lift you up. I lift you up because you have drawn me up. And then it goes to verse 2. O Lord, my God, I cried to you for help. And you have, look at that word right there, healed me. This is a weird way that the psalm begins. You have made it so that my foes don't rejoice over me. And so I cried to you for help and you healed me. What David does here is that he goes from, the problem is out there, the foes, they're people, they're saying bad things about me, they're external from me, and then I cried to you for help, but then you healed me. God doesn't heal external things, doesn't heal them things. Heal is an internal thing. And so what David is wrestling with is that sometimes there's a them problem. And sometimes, we'll get to that in a moment. Hold on, back up. Sometimes there's a them problem, and sometimes there's an us problem, right? Sometimes we have people around the dinner table that, family being family, like, hey, God, do something about that person. Get them worked out. That's a them problem. But if we had to be honest, it's an us problem. It's us that's dealing with pride. It's us that's dealing with arrogance. And so I was trying to think of how to illustrate that. So let's do that now. Let's look at a them problem. I love this imagery of no matter how much this guy tries to wash his hair, it just never comes out. And the amount of frustration that he builds up as he goes, just constantly, he scrubs and he scrubs. And it just doesn't go. If you have any them problems, you know that feeling that no matter how hard you try, no matter what you're doing to correct it, it's constantly out there, something is wrong and it's causing me problems. What kind of them problems do you have in your life? Do you have challenging workplace? Do you have challenging family? You have challenging friendships, challenging resources, your economy, all these out there problems. God, do something about out there. It's really affecting my thankfulness. But sometimes we have a me problem. David said that I cried to you for help and I was healed. I love these videos. I'll tell you, I have a secret Achilles heel. Like I can be a pretty serious person, but if I ever see a video of a kid doing something silly, I watch it forever. That and talking animals for some reason. But look at this kid with the water hose. He's just hey, I'm just trying to play. I want to water the yard. I'm going to water my parents. And as he's just kind of navigating life, and he ends up becoming frustrated with all this water that's falling on him, but it's him that's causing it. Is this not a perfect image of so many times in our own life? You are the reason that the thing keeps happening. Why do I keep ending up in that situation? Why do I keep going through this? What kind of internal me problems do we face? Many of us face perfectionism, where we can be overly critical. Maybe we talk down to people. Maybe we're sometimes prideful. Maybe we have trust issues. Maybe we have forgiveness issues. Maybe we're carrying around wounds and we lead with that wound first. Maybe we lack contentment. Maybe we we compare ourselves too much, and it's all these internal issues. And what David has done is, I'm going to lift you up because I cried to you for help for my them problems, and then you healed me from my me problems. Some of us have a combination of the them problems and the me problems, and maybe you grew up and you've gone through an abusive relationship. Well, that was definitely a them that caused it, but you're carrying some of the battle wounds, right? So it's an us problem, it's a me problem and a them problem. Some of us deal with chronic illness. It's out there. I didn't mean to, there was an accident or I'm carrying this, but I also have to navigate this world. It's both and. And here's what happens in David. As he processes this. Verse 3 he says, "O Lord, you have brought up my soul from Sheol. You restored me to life from among those who go down to the pit." He's assessing this. God, I lift you up because you brought me up. You know what you brought me up out of? You brought me up as I was going down to the pit. When you and I, if you've been in church for a while, you see the pit. First image that comes to mind, in my mind and maybe in many of your minds, is the pit equals hell, right? It's eternal damnation. And that's a fair jump because that's what the book of Revelation does, and many of the prophets will do that. But it's primarily used as just like there are pits in life. Joseph was thrown into a pit. It's just an empty hole in the ground. It's used as a prison. Whenever you've got a bully, you need to lock them up, put them in the pit. It's used as a trap for animals. Like you put some twigs over it, put a little piece of cheese on it. Deer, I don't know if deer eat cheese, but they're going to fall in the pit. And it's a trap. And what David is saying is, God, you rescued me because I was on my way into that trap. I was on my way into that pit. I was falling. Many of us, we have these moments in life where we have that aha. We wake up and we look around and we realize this path that I'm on, it's not leading to the place that I really want to go. You have that, aha, what do you do? Many people I talk to, they feel, well, I caused this. It was a me problem, so now I have to live with it. Some people are like, I didn't do anything wrong, and my parents brought me this far, and my spouse did this, whatever. The economy did this. But I'm leading to disaster. Whether it's a me problem or a them problem, if you look up and you see that you're heading for a trap, you can cry to God for help in that moment. More than that, if you have the eyes to see that you're on your way to destruction, that is a gift and a mercy from God that you can and should be thankful for. Look what he says in verse 4. "Sing praises to the Lord, O you his saints, and give thanks to his name." Give thanks to him because you can see what he's done in the past, that he's lifted you up, or you currently have eyes to see like what's happening right now is leading to destruction. But you say, you don't know where I am right now. Some people are like, it's easy to be thankful when everything's going right, isn't it? It's easy to be thankful when my marriage is strong. It's easy to be thankful when, you just got that new job. Yay, you. It's good to be thankful. You don't know what I'm going through, though, right? See, David's got a psalm for that. David's in this psalm, he starts to talk about whether you're in the highest of highs or the lowest of lows, there's still opportunity to be thankful. Look how he outlines his reasons right here, verse 5. For his anger is but for a moment, and his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may tarry for the night, but joy comes in the morning. He looks at his life and he's like, sometimes I've got joy and sometimes I have weeping. Sometimes I'm on mountains and things are going great, and sometimes I'm in lows and I'm just like, God, where'd you go? Is anybody in here, have you ever been following the Lord long enough? You've got a long enough history of following the Lord that you can see those hilltop moments where you will never leave this space. Your worship is on point. The Lord is blessing. Every word out of your mouth just seems anointed. And then it's like a month later, God, where'd you go? Is it me? Are you mad at me? What do we have? Some of us have mornings of joy, these mountaintop highs, and many of us remember or currently are in these nights of weeping, these valley lows. And the ancient church, they had words for this. And what they argued for, and what it seems to be that David is arguing for, is that you can be following the Lord correctly and end up on mountaintop highs. And many of you are like, yeah, that's the goal, right? To get to the mountaintop and to stay there. But sometimes following the Lord will just have a season of valley that comes after that. And people who don't know that that's part of the process of following the Lord feel like, oh, I've messed up. It must be me. And it may be, and it may just be that's the season that you're in right now. The words that they had for this were those mountaintop highs. The ancient church called those consolations. Consolations are an important way of kind of processing, because we all want the consolation. We all want where things are awesome, where you feel good. You got the warm fuzzies. You guys know the warm fuzzies? Some people consider the warm fuzzies like you haven't worshiped God until you feel something in your belly that makes you all tingly and happy, and they try to manufacture that. And when they go into a season where they can't manufacture that, they think, oh, where'd God go? Where is he? Well, maybe that's just part of it. But the consolation is described as these times in which God helps us feel his presence. We sense that we're blessed and encouraged by him when our spiritual practices facilitate an enjoyment of God's goodness. These are seasons in your life where you go to church and you worship God and you walk away feeling enlivened. These are seasons in your life where you start to devote yourself to morning prayer or evening prayer, and you're just in that prayer, you just feel closer to God than you've ever been. Have you experienced that, Christian? Consolations, mountaintop highs. Those are beautiful, beautiful moments. Savor them, be thankful for them, but don't make the mistake of believing that just because you entered into a valley that, I have nothing to be thankful for. What is going on? What have I gone wrong? Those valley moments, the ancient church called desolations. Consolations are those positive times. Desolations are those valley times, those nights of weeping. Desolations are described as times when God feels absent, distant, or hard to reach. Typically, our spiritual practices begin to falter in bringing us enjoyment and satisfaction they once did. You enter into a desolation, you enter into a valley, you enter into those weeping nights that David just described, and the thing that gave you joy last week, the prayer, the going to church, the singing the songs, the worshiping with people, it doesn't seem to be hitting the same anymore. Some people, when you don't realize that there's a reason to be thankful, there's a beauty in those desolations, in those valleys. There's a treasure in those valleys. They enter into that season where the prayer doesn't work, and they're just like, it must be broken. I need to go find something else. Here's how David he tells us his story. Verse 6, he says, as for me, let me tell you what I did. Anybody have a story where you're like, you knew everything, and then you found out later you didn't know what you were talking about? No? Okay. All right. Well, I'll just keep that to myself. Then verse 6. It says, as for me, I said in my prosperity, I said in my mountaintop moment, I said in my consolation, when all the blessings were there and I could feel them, I shall never be moved. You ever have that awesome moment where you're just like, everything's clicking right and you think it's never, maybe it's the new guy at work. He has all the right answers. He has a silver tongue. He did great at the interview, and he's like, nothing I say will go wrong. 1 month into the job, he's like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Anybody remember as a kid when you got your first paycheck? You got your job, and you're like, you're getting paid $8 an hour. You're like, whoo, baby, I'm going to buy me a car or something. You get that first paycheck, and you see all 3 of the digits on the check, and you're like, I'm the richest. I'm Scrooge McDuck. You feel like you're swimming in the pot of gold on the cartoon until the first cell phone bill hit. Like that $300-400 does not go far. But when you get that first check, you think, I will never be moved from this mountain. I never have to work a day again in my life. I am independently wealthy. and you're really not. You can be thankful for knowledge and experience and friends and resources and blessings, but when we over-prioritize them, when we become overconfident in them, we're placing upon them a weight that is weightier than they should be. And if we do that, it's going to affect our thankfulness. It's going to knock us off balance. Look what he says in verse 7. By your favor, O Lord. I'm on this mountaintop experience. It's the best time. I'm never going to be moved from here. And by your favor, O Lord, you made my mountain stand strong. That sounds good, right? That sounds like, hey, that's exactly what it's going to be. But look what he says in the next line. It's a big plot twist. You hid your face. I was dismayed. I told God, and I told everybody else, I'm going to stand on this mountain forever. And God looked down and says, all right, let's try that out. Let's see how it goes. You get all of my stuff. You don't get me, and you come back to me when you're ready. And God hid his face from him. As for me, he says, as for who he starts to own his position in this. His mountain is this beautiful moment that is never going to move. And by God's favor, his blessing, God says, you know what, I'm going to hide my face from you. I'm going to let you experience that darkness. It's like a father who gives his child everything, a roof, resources, all the toys to play with, skills in a trade. And as the kid accumulates all of it and says, I'm really great. I'm pretty awesome. I don't need you anymore, Dad. I'm going to go away. And the father, in his favor, hides his face from him. See, what we struggle with as an American church is that the favor of God, the blessing of God sometimes includes valley moments to remind you that you don't need his stuff as much as you need to be close to your heavenly Father. It is a gift to your Father that he would remove his face from you for a season so that you will crave to be back to him rather than you barreling into more rebellious desires. This one idea that God's favor could include turning his face from us should be incredibly sobering to all of us in here. What if that long season you've experienced of dryness, like I used to be so close to the Lord, what is going on? What if the whole point of that season is God's grace and mercy to show you that the things that you've prioritized in your life are starting to get out of balance? What if that whole moment of just, I feel dry, I feel like I'm in a moment, is the Lord showing you like, hey, I want to tweak some of the things that you're carrying around or you're carrying too much all together. There's a book by C.S. Lewis called The Great Divorce. I don't know if you've heard of it, but he imagines, in The Great Divorce, C.S. Lewis imagines what heaven and hell might look like. It's really an interesting look. He doesn't quote a bunch of Bible verses. It's just in his mind what heaven might look like and what hell might look like. And in that book, he talks about this, and he says there are two kinds of people. Those who say to God, thy will be done, and those to whom God says, all right then, have it your way. Boom. Oh, you want to try things on your own? I'll let you go. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, I was staying with my grandparents, and I was a turd of a kid. I don't know if you know that by looking at me. And so I was like in a moody moment. They want to go fishing, and I'm like, I'll never go fishing again, And so at one moment, as we were packing everything up, putting it in the truck, I just took off, and I ran around the corner and hid behind a shed. I don't know what I was thinking. And I watched my grandparents. They didn't flinch. They didn't come looking for me. I expected them to be frantic, like, oh no, he's going to get hit. They didn't seem to care. They kept loading the truck, and I'm watching from behind the shed. And they got in the truck and they left. They went fishing without me. And I'm like, those monsters. I'm 4, being left by myself. And so I break into my grandparents' house, and as I'm trying to get through the next door, like I'm in the porch area, I'm trying to get through the next door. All they did was make the block, and now they've come back, and now I'm stuck. I'm like, I'm no longer hidden. And they come in, and I went from being a rebellious kid to just thankful that they came back, because they're loving grandparents, and they knew, hey, you know what? He wants to go independent for a while. Let me feel what that feels like. It was terrifying for the 30 seconds I was fending for myself. I fought off wolves. You guys don't even know. And sometimes the Lord, when we go into that rebellious mode, he goes, oh, you want to do it by yourself? Have it your way. You can see this in the book of Romans. You can see this in all through the Old Testament. And the truth is that you and I will never fully come to a place where we are self-sufficient apart from the Lord. True Christian maturity is holy dependency upon him. Verse 8, he says, to you, O Lord, I cry, and to the Lord I plead for mercy. I'm on my mountain, I will never be moved. God, you hid your face from me. The next move is, God, have mercy on me. I cry to you for help. If you are hearing this message and you're in a low spot and you're thinking, you know what, I've got a stack of problems. I've got them problems. I've got me problems. I've got things just out of balance all over the place. I'm no longer prioritizing things correctly. I feel like I'm about to drown. If you're even hearing this message, it is a blessing from God that you know what to do next. Cry to the Lord for mercy. And the testimony of this psalm is that he heals. Verse 3, not verse 3. The third point is that what we want is thankfulness. What we want is to grow in this season. You want to stop faking it, don't you? I'm so sick of faking emotions. I don't want to fake being joyful in Christmas. I don't want to fake being thankful in Thanksgiving. I don't like it. But I don't want to be a Scrooge either. I don't want to be a wet blanket on all of everybody else's party. I don't want to yuck your yum. That's one of my favorite phrases. True thankfulness can come from this overflowing place where our lives and circumstances start to become weighted properly. The valleys and the mountains get their proper place. The good and the bad, my problems and the them problems get their place. Imagine, if you would, a dedicated student who's working really, really hard to complete his or her assignments. Any type A people in here? Like, you just lose your mind. You're going to work tirelessly. Like C's get degrees, not in my house. I'm getting A pluses, right? And the student, imagine what would happen if the student undervalues a task or assignment. Oh, that test isn't a big deal. I can blow that off. What's going to happen? You're not going to be successful. It's not going to work out. You undervalue it. You're not going to study it. You put it too low. You're not going to be successful. But imagine the opposite. Imagine the student. Some of you are the student that you overemphasize it. You stress over all the minor points. You get everything right. What's going to happen? You're going to become overwhelmed. You're going to become anxious. That in both extremes ends in the same place of brokenness, lowness. There has to be a way to get balance. Here's what the psalm says in verse 9. What profit is there in my death if I go down to the pit? He looks up. I'm on my way to the pit. God's helping me keep my mountain exactly the way that I want. And I look up and I was like, uh-oh, this isn't going where I want it to go. And he starts to assess it. What profit is that? What if I get everything that I want and I miss God? That's not going to work out. Will the dust praise you, God? That's pointed to God. Will it tell of your faithfulness? If I die apart from you, there's nothing left to bring glory to his name. Verse 10, hear, O Lord, and be merciful to me. O Lord, be my helper. The psalmist starts to size up what is going to happen if he continues on this road and decides, you know what, God, help me. Help me. That word helper in Hebrew is azer. The first time it is used is whenever God creates for Adam a helper, an azer. It is a unique word for help because there's another softer word in Hebrew for help. This is the kind of help that it's when God partners alongside someone to accomplish the task. It's like you see the task of your life that needs to be done, and he lets you try to do it by your own strength. And he helps by throwing resources at it, your skills, your talents, your gifts. But then whenever you realize, I'm not going to get this done on my own. I'm not going to be the best dad I can be on my own. I'm not going to be the best spouse I can be on my own. God, help me. And that other help, that azer help, is applied. I'm not a huge country music fan. I don't know if that's good news or bad news to you. But when we moved to Dallas, my wife, Ashley, she really likes Josh Turner. Anybody like Josh Turner? He's a weird one in my head because he looks like he has the voice of a middle school boy, but he talks like he's so deep, like he's way, way down there. And so he had a concert at Billy Bob's in Fort Worth, which is this big venue with all these, like, the handprints of all the famous musicians that have come through there. And he was kind of early in his career, and Ashley loves this guy, and so wants to go watch it. So we go to Billy Bob's, and we're there to see Josh Turner. And so there are a couple of opening acts at Billy Bob's, and it's a venue, so they're serving alcohol, and there's some people who are kind of getting overserved over here, and so they're partying, they're having a good time. And the opening acts are kind of of leaning into it. So it's all those country songs like, grab a beer, and everybody's like, yeah. And so they're shaking it. Red Solo Cup is played, all that. And so everybody's like really leaning into it. And Josh Turner, he gets up. And now he's the headliner, And he has this song called Long Black Train. And it's about this thing that you think is going to be great, but it ends in destruction. So he opens his set by saying, hey, some of you are really struggling with some addiction, and you think that what is going to bring you joy, you think this thing is going to bring you joy, but some of you are starting to see it's going to lead to destruction, and the crowd's like, yeah. So I wrote a song about that. I want to sing Long Black Train, and it's really weird because as he's singing the song, they're like shaking the red solo cups just like they were before. But look at these lines. It's so thoughtful. He says, there's a long black train coming down the line, feeding off the souls that are lost and crying. Rails of sin, only evil remains. Watch out, brother, for that long black train. Some of us, our testimony is a story of like, man, I was on that for a while. Some of us, the testimony is like, I almost got on that and the Lord rescued me from it, whatever it is. He goes on, the song says, look to the heavens, you can look to the skies, you can find redemption staring back into your eyes. There is protection and there is peace the same. Burn in your ticket for that long black train, and people stumble in drunk. Yeah, they're loving it. The chorus of the song says, because there's victory in the Lord. I say, this guy at this concert is just proclaiming the goodness of Jesus. Victory in the Lord. Cling to the Father and his holy name, and don't go riding that long black train. The song is a song about people who believe that what they're on is going to lead them to joy, waking up to realize this isn't going the way that I want. Can I get off? The song, even in the middle, highlights that feeling you have like, I'm stuck, I can never get off. And he says, just cry to the Lord. There is mercy in his name. Verse 11, you have turned for me my mourning into dancing. You have loosed my sackcloth and clothed me with gladness. What the Lord has done in this man's life is that he's given him the capacity for both the highs and the lows. He's given him the capacity for mourning, grieving, and thankfulness. He's given him the capacity for desolations and consolations, for weakness and thankfulness, for highs and lows. We cry out to the Lord and we can be thankful because now we know how to be on both sides of this. Verse 12, this is how the psalm ends, that my glory may sing your praise and not be silent. O Lord, my God, I will give thanks to you forever. The middle of the psalm, my glory is my mountain. I will never be moved. But now that you've rescued me from where I was heading, my glory will sing your praise forever. This is how we become thankful, church. It's not by getting everything you want, and it's not by always existing in mountaintop highs, and it's not always by just stacking up as many blessings as you want or having the warm fuzzies in you. It is by knowing that no matter what season you're on, there is a Lord in heaven that is willing to rescue you. Cry out to him for help. Even if you're crying out to him for the them problems, and he decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to help you with the you problem first. You're like, I didn't ask you for that, but he knows how to heal. There's an author by the name of David Paul Tripp. He wrote a book on leadership, but in that book, he talks about balance. And he talks about this idea that in this world, the Lord is trying to build shalom, and we usually translate it as peace. And he says, shalom is the world and everybody working the way it's supposed to be. Everything's in balance the way that it's supposed to be. And then he looks at that word glory that was right there in verse 12, my glory. The Hebrew word for that is kavod. Say kavod. Yeah, you guys are going to do great on Jeopardy one day. And so kavod literally means weight. It's like your glory. Like the more you should be glorified, the bigger deal you are, the higher your weight is. So your kavod is your weight. And he says, you know what knocks things off balance is things getting assigned a weight that they weren't supposed to have. A glory that they weren't supposed to have. And he calls that idolatry. When things get out of balance, you put the wrong weight on the wrong thing, it knocks our life off balance. Here's what Tripp says. He says, idolatry is your heart out of balance. Idolatry is when the glory of God, the Creator, is exchanged for the glory of the created thing. Sin throws the scale out of balance, causing created things to have more control over your thoughts, desires, choices, words, and actions than God does. This is all like, oh yeah, I know this. If you've been in church for a while, you're like, I believe this. But look what he says next. He says, this means that as long as sin lives inside you, you will struggle to keep things in your life in proper balance. As long as you're on this side of heaven, you will have a natural tendency to assign the wrong weight to things, and it will knock you off balance. It is a form of idolatry. And we hear that, and you and I think, yes, people have idols like crack cocaine. Oh my gosh, like please stop with the drugs. We think of addictions. We think of alcohol. We think of people who struggle with pride and arrogance or pornography, and we think, look at those idols, Lord, do something about that. But this softer definition is anything we assign in our life the wrong weight, the wrong glory. We might assign the wrong weight to our family. In our role as a parent, we might assign the wrong weight to our position in our job, our authority, or our ability to lead others. We might assign the wrong weight to caring for other people. Do you know that if you do a good thing too much, it's a bad thing? You've heard that before? This book is written to pastors, and he goes on. The very next line of this book says, it's weird because in ministry, the idolatry becomes doing more ministry. Sometimes you place the activity of doing things for God at a higher rate than just being with God, and that will knock your life off balance as much as any other idol will. We must trust that the Lord has the right and knows better on how to position all the different ingredients so that we can get where we want to go. So the psalm opens with verse 1 is, I'm going to lift you up. I'm going to lift you up. I'm going to extol you, for you have drawn me up. I'm going to lift you up because you have drawn me up. I want to meditate as we close this out on this phrase. Now that you've brought it up, thank you. You've been brought up. Now that you've brought something up, something's been brought to your attention. Maybe the Lord's pointed something out. It's like, hey, you're on your way to distraction. You're on your way to destruction. You're on your way to the pit. And Lord, now that you've brought that up, thank you, rather than hiding from it. When someone says, you're having this like mountaintop experience, you're right now assuming you're just as close to the Lord as you've ever been. Lord, now that you've brought me up to this place, I just want to pause and thank you. Not take credit for it. I want to thank you. I don't know if you guys follow UFC, but a guy by the name of Jon Jones last week or the week before, he just won the heavyweight title, which is not a small thing. Like you're a monster of a fighter to be able to win that fight. This is basically the greatest fighter in the world this week. Okay, Jon Jones wins that, and as he is still breathing hard from the fight, you know how they do, like after the bell dings and they declare the winner, he's still going. Just a guy runs in there with a microphone. He hasn't planned a speech. He's just been punched in the face for the last 3 rounds, and they're like, "What do you have to say for yourself, Jon Jones? Now that you're the heavyweight champion of the world?" And he says this. He says, while there's a picture of him that'll come up. Yeah, there he is. That's Jon Jones. He says, while I got the moment, while everyone is cheering and so happy, I want to acknowledge, this is him breathing hard, I want to acknowledge Jesus Christ. And the crowd goes wild. Like the whole stadium or arena cheers. And he says, I tell you what, man, I cannot take credit for a gift like this. I really owe it all to him. Really, John? Like, did you train at all? Yeah, I train like crazy, right? Like, he's been training, he's been working out, he studied the skill, but at the end of the day, he says, I owe him credit for all of this. He's on this mountaintop experience, and he remembers to give God thanks. When someone compliments you on something, oh, hey, you have really great hair. Hey, thank you for bringing that up. Also, I notice you. Hey, now that you brought it up, thank you. Now that you've brought it up, thank you. When your weird family this week starts that uncomfortable conversation about politics or religion, you're just like, bro, like I didn't sign up for that. But you know your weird family member. If you don't know who that is, there's a good chance you are that person. Hey, thanks for bringing that up, but I don't typically talk about that. Thank you. You just, hey, you brought it up. You acknowledge it. They hear it. Hey, thank you. When a boss or close friend comes to you and offers you that stinging corrective advice, hey, I notice you're doing this. Hey, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'll take a look at it. Now that you've brought it up, thank you. When you're learning that hard lesson, that the problems aren't always out there, and some of them are me problems. Some of them are I struggle with pride. I have an anger issue. I need to be more content. Lord, now that you've brought that up, thank you. Don't hide from that. If you find yourself, even right now, you're walking in a really hard, dark spot, you're in a desolation, and you turn to him and you say, Lord, You're ready to cry to him for help. You're ready to cry to him for mercy. Lord, I've been meaning to bring this up to you. What he may start to do is to handle the them problems that you're really, really aware of. What he also may start to do is start to handle the you problems that you've been trying to hide and other people know really well about you, but you've not been acknowledging. What he may start to do is start to rearrange the priority of things in your heart. It may be a long season, but at the end of it, you come to this place because he's the helper. You come to this place where you get to say, thank you. That might be a longer conversation, but it still ends with a thank you because there's a thank you available for anything that is brought up, that comes to your attention. As we close in prayer, I want to draw your attention. We're giving these away in the back called Everyday Gospel. It's a Christmas devotional. And if you're struggling this time of year, as many people do with the holidays, on like keeping the main thing, I'll just say it, Jesus is the main thing. And you just need some help like recentering that. This is a great devotional, just kind of get you started. And it's a gift to you. It's in the, I don't know where that, I'm just going to do that. You guys know what that is. I don't know what it's called. We need to name that space. It's in the cubby. It's in the cubby. Father, we come to you in the name of Jesus, and we thank you oftentimes because we know we're supposed to, and may we continue to do that. May we continue to know that we're supposed to and never take credit for a thing, and never just start to think it's us, that we're this awesome. But Lord, I want to take it a step further. I want to feel thankful. I want to be truly thankful. I know so many others in this room do. So Lord, we ask for your help, that we would cry to you for help, that you would heal whatever it is in us that is causing us to not be thankful. Lord, I give you permission in my life, and I hope others would as well. You want to rearrange some things in my heart. You want to point at some things that need healing. Lord, please do. And may we enter into the season not forcefully thanking you through gritted teeth, but actually thankful as we sit around the table with friends and family and share with each other. Lord, I pray a blessing in the name of Jesus over these men and women. Amen. You're dismissed.